Welcome, everybody, to the next Landvoice podcast. We are thrilled to have a good friend and a just fellow entrepreneur. But what we really love about Eddie Donnelly and what we want to kind of express to everyone out there is this is one guy that has absolutely crushed it with FSBOs and expireds. Eddie, we want to tell that story today, but welcome to the program. We're thrilled to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, it's so great to be here, Shaun. I really appreciate you having me. It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man. So the story, we're going to jump right into it because it's 30 minutes or less. We get into it, we have some fun, and hopefully we can help some agents inspire other agents to do really cool things in their business, not only now, but into next year. We want to catapult that as well. So let's tell the story. So if I remember right, if I understand correctly, January of 2015, you get into real estate, you get your license, you're working a full-time job and trying to figure out how do I sell real estate while still working full-time. Now, for a lot of agents, in my opinion, Eddie, that's the best way to do it. You still have income coming in, and then you start selling some properties on the side. And you were, I think, fortunate enough to get into a coaching program that taught you a lot about how to generate business quickly, right? And that was through FSBOs and expired. So tell that story real quick to everybody. Help them understand how you went from a full-time job to actually making some money. And then the next year, what did you do to actually really grow your business and become successful in real estate?
Well, the thing was I had just moved to Asheville, North Carolina, so the only people I knew were the people that lived in my house, and I
So no
didn't know
database, right?
no database, no nothing. I didn't know the neighborhoods. I didn't know anything. And at that time, we had four kids. We now have five, and so four kids. So there was no not having a job or any money coming in. So as you mentioned, I was fortunate enough to get into the Bold program, probably in my second or third month in the business. It came in the spring. I had just gotten licensed in January, and one of the things they kind of pushed was for sale by owners and expired. So I got Landvoice, and I think you were one of the sponsors at that Bold. And so I got Landvoice, and I did what they told me to do. I practiced, I role played, and every day before I got on the phones, I spent 15 minutes practicing. And one of the most important things was when I practiced, I always said, hey, give me at least five objections. Tell me no at least five times, because you play at the level you practice at, right? So I wanted to make sure, no matter what they said, I could roll with it. And I did that. And so that year, I wound up doing 13 transactions.
Yes,
And
sir.
that was
Yep.
enough to get me going. And then the next year, it was working. So I kept doing it. And then I wound up doing 33. My second year in the business, I was able to leave my full-time job halfway through that year. And it was because I discussed it with my wife. As long as I had so many under contract at any given time, and the pipeline was looking good, that she said, okay, you can go full on in real estate, that we feel safe. So,
Eddie,
that's
I
how it
love
went.
the story, man. Like you moved to a new city, no friends, no sphere, no database, and you just hit
Mhm.
FSBOs and expireds, which to me is, we call FSBOs fastest source. What does Christoph call it? Fastest source of business
That's the source of
opportunity.
business opportunities.
Yeah, and you did it, right? You took a full-time job and were able to walk away from that 13 units your first year while working full-time, but then you really kind of got good at prospecting and really developing relationships with FSBOs and with expireds.
Mhm.
33 units in your, what I would call your second year, but really your first year that you don't have a full-time job, right?
Well, half of the year I did.
Yeah, and still did 33 units, right?
Yeah. Uh,
Amazing. And then the next year, tell the group what you did the next year working FSBOs and expireds.
I did about 15 million in volume and around 62 units.
Incredible. No sphere, no friends, no family, new city. And you really just kind of grew a business, getting really good in one niche in real estate that helped you
Mhm.
become successful. So I want to hit on in just a second, what do you say to these FSBOs, right? But your story really connected to me. One, for we're really passionate about FSBOs and expireds at Landvoice, obviously, right? But five kids, I've got five kids. I thought that's pretty awesome, pretty amazing. But also in your family, you've got a daughter that's just pretty amazing, right? A two-time cancer survivor, had
Mm.
Hodgkin's lymphoma, and this is where you and I synergize because my wife had Hodgkin's lymphoma, two-time cancer survivor, and we've got two women in our lives. Um, each of us have a woman in our life that's just extremely strong and passionate, but because of that cancer in your daughter's life, you ended up moving, relocating, and having to kind of just upend all of your real estate business and start over again, right?
Yeah.
And number one, I'm just thrilled that your daughter's healthy and happy, but number two, to be able to make that sacrifice for a family member and start the whole business over again and prove that you can work different models in a business. And even now, you're in a new city again, working FSBOs
Yeah.
and expireds and growing the business. And what I'm trying to tell people out there is this can be you, right? Like you can get really passionate about growing a business and becoming successful because, Eddie, that's what you did.
Yeah. And the amazing thing about all of this is um, it was actually in another bold where over that 8 week period, you know how they count how many units you can put in. I wound up doing 27, and so 27 units, and so when we think about what's possible and what's impossible and things like that, I know for a fact, no matter where I go, it's the same thing, you know? And so when we found out our daughter was sick, that was November 5th, 2020. And we had a lot of things going on. At that time, we also had three foster girls, a 6 year old, a 9 year old, and a newborn. And so we had eight kids at the time. And so we had to navigate that and figure out, you know, what we were going to do. And so we found out November 5th, 2020. And, you know, the type of cancer she had was, it had a high mortality rate. And we wanted to make sure that she got the best care possible. And so we had to move to Cleveland to be closer to the Cleveland Clinic. So we found out November 5th. I had my house sold December 15th. I had my house bought Cleveland December 20th. She had her surgery in January. And I got licensed in February because Ohio was not reciprocal. So I had to go through real estate
Mm,
school all over again. And
yeah.
so did the whole thing over again, got licensed in February, did my first deal in June, and then did 26 units between June and December.
It's
And
amazing.
so
Gosh, go ahead.
yeah, and that's just it. It's one of those things where if you know how to do the business and you know what to say, you can figure it out. You know, just like Gary says, success is simple. It's not easy. You do have to put in the work. It's just that the path to it is simple, and it's 20 contacts a day, 5 days a week, 100 contacts a week, real estate conversations. It's simple. It's just not easy.
Not easy. And not everyone's willing to do easy, but if you're willing to do something that's important to grow your business, and to me, what I see, Eddie, is you understood your why. You were backed up moving to another city in Cleveland, Ohio, having to get your license, and really you had no other option, which was just to make it happen, right? Go grow the
Mm-hmm.
business, get the listings, and do that. Now, you shared a story with me that I want you to share. Let me preface it with this. Prospecting isn't easy. And sometimes we have to like throw a little carrot or incentive at us, like, hey, I'm going to make 50 calls this morning. And after those 50 calls, like, I'm going to get some Starbucks, right? Or I'm going to do this. But we
Uh-huh.
got to throw a little carrot out at us, like, but we got to do that first before we go to Starbucks or we go do something else, right? Like, all those carrots can sometimes be distractions. No, sometimes they're like a positive incentive and sometimes they're a negative consequence. For example, right before COVID, I was so upset with myself, like how much weight I'd gained over the last couple of years, right? And so we were setting goals as a company, and I'm standing up in front of our company, and I said, you know what, I'm going to lose 15 pounds this month. I'm at an all-time high, and if I don't, I'm going to pay this group, and it's a small little group that was gathered for lunch. I'm like, I'm going to pay this group $500. You guys can divide it however you want. And so I threw out this kind of negative consequence, right? And I told my wife, and she's like, well, you better lose those 15 pounds. Well, I thought I weighed X. And so I told the group I was going to weigh this in 30 days when we met again for lunch. Well, I went home that day and actually weighed 3 pounds more than what I thought I had weighed. So I actually had to lose 18 pounds that day. And I had a negative consequence. I didn't want to pay them $500, right? And the reason I share that story is you got a really cool story that helped you prospect FSBOs and expireds. And whether it's a positive incentive or a negative consequence, sometimes we got to put something in place to help us be successful. And I want you to share with the group because prospecting can be difficult. It can be hard. Losing 15 pounds, and in my case, 18 in 30 days was really hard. But I did it, by the way. We got it done the day before. And it was through intermittent fasting and some other things. I want you to tell the group your story about intermittent fasting and what you did to kind of help yourself do a hard thing, not only intermittent fasting, but how you prospected and grew your business.
Well, a quick side note before I get into that, based on your story.
Yeah.
I always have a coach. So I always have a coach, and I had a coach, and I was 90 leads behind my goal where I was supposed to be, 90 leads behind. And my coach was going on a 3-week vacation. And she told me that, we agreed that for every lead that I didn't have, it would be $50 when she got back. So I still had to do my lead generation while she was gone and make get all those leads and make up the 90. And for every one I was behind, I would owe $50. My wife
could owe her $4,500 then, right? In 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife wasn't happy about that because she said, "You made what deal?" and so then it became, okay, I have to do this. So I didn't pay a single dollar. I made up all the leads and I got it done. Now here's the story about that. So intermittent fasting, what I did was I would stop eating at 7:00 at night. And I wouldn't allow myself to eat the next day until I set an appointment. So I was hungry figuratively and literally because I made sure that I wouldn't get up from my desk. I wouldn't go eat. I wouldn't do anything until I set an appointment the next day. And it got me really good at setting appointments.
Yeah, like that's the commitment, right? Like you're doing something really hard, but you have something else that's even harder. Huge, man. I mean, because if I would have told that group, like, hey, I'm going to buy myself a $500 watch, right, at the end of 30 days, if I hit it, I don't know if that would have been a big enough incentive for me. But losing $500 or $4,500 in your case, that's a big deal. And it really gets us committed to making sure we do whatever that goal is, right? And your other goal of intermittent fasting, you stop at 7 at night and you can't eat again until you set an appointment. Amazing. And what I'm trying to tell the group out there is sometimes you can throw a little carrot of Starbucks or $500 or $1,000 or $2,000 at yourself, and that's not enough motivation. Sometimes we have to have kind of a negative consequence to go hit our goal. And to me, it's a shining moment, Eddie. Like you did something that was really difficult, but you had even a more difficult consequence that you just had to make it happen. And I think as human beings, we got to have that sometimes. At least my personality type, your personality type, it works. And for a lot of you out there, I think you should consider that type of opportunity where you have an accountability group, a coach, but you tell them, I will pay you in 10 days, 7 days, 30 days. If this one goal that I have, I'm writing it down, it's on my mirror, I look at it every day, but you're going to be my accountability partner or my coach. And if I don't hit this, I owe you X, right? And that's the value of a coach, your coach that really allowed you to make special things happen. So not only do we need a coach or an accountability partner, but we also need to say the right things, right? And so if you don't mind, tell the group, because number one, we got to be committed to the goal. We got to set the goal. We got to be committed to the goal. We got to have an accountability partner or a coach, in my opinion, but then we got to say the right things. So give everybody out there just a quick, not a tease, but give them a little bit of some flavor of just what's the right thing to say to a FSBO when you're calling a FSBO. I mean, again, you did 13 units. half-time, part-time, then 33, then 62, just calling FSBOs and expireds. What did you say to them that worked? What was kind of your opening introduction to try and get your foot in the door?
Essentially, it's the same. Uh, why are they selling? Why are they selling it themselves? They want to net more money. So that's where I start. I start there and I say, hey, this is Eddie Donnelly with Keller Williams Connected, and I was calling because I saw you had a home for sale and you were selling it yourself. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, I've helped a lot of for sale by owners sell their homes and actually net more money. And would it be okay if I came by today or tomorrow to show you how I can actually net you more money? When would be good for you? 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock? And you start there, and they say no, and so they say no and say, okay, well, when you do sell, where are you planning to move to? And you just go into you start digging into their motivation. I always ask for the appointment right away. And my thing is if we were to role play that, you could tell me no several times, and I would keep asking you questions, because the thing about being a real estate agent is come from curiosity. That's the thing. Always be asking really good questions and get them talking, because once kind of dig up their motivation, that gives you the ammunition of what to go after. And you find out why they're selling, what they're selling for, and then you can figure out which tactic to take. And I'm going to keep asking, I'm going to keep saying, well, that's great. Let's set a time so we can talk and meet. When's a good time for me to come by? And within the first few minutes, I'm going to ask for that appointment at least 3-4 times. And, the other part to it is when you're talking to for sale by owners, the reality is this: most agents, even if they get a lead, aren't going to call that lead. 50% of the agents aren't going to call the lead once. So when I get a list from Landvoice, I know 50% of the agents that are getting it aren't going to call the lead once. And then 70, of the 50% that called once, 75% of them won't call a second time.
Right.
And so by the time I do the follow-up and I'm on the third, fourth call, I know I'm in rare air. I'm probably the only real estate agent still talking to them. So, the fortune's in the follow-up. And if you're, when you practice and get good at really digging in and building rapport quickly, you can get the appointment on the first one too.
Gosh, there's so much there. I want to touch on what you said early in the phone call. I want to touch on what the follow-up looks like for you. How often do you follow up with the FSBO?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to touch on the third thing is, what do you exactly say when somebody says no? Because I think for a lot of agents out there, they get told no and they kind of just, oh, okay, thanks. And right. So I want to talk about the rejection and what do you say to get past that to continue the conversation. But the first thing you said in your introductory, when you're calling a FSBO and you're saying, hi, this is Eddie Donnelly. And then in that pitch, and hope everybody will go back and listen to that again and even write it down. But you talk to a FSBO and say, if I could help you net more, would you be willing to have that conversation? And I think what I love about that, Eddie, is you're helping them already get past their number one concern, which is most FSBOs are trying to sell their self to keep the most money. But what they don't understand is they typically sell their home for less than what an agent can sell it for. Right. And so leading with that, to me, I think is genius. I think there's some real art to talking to a FSBO and communicating in that way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to proactively handle their objection. So I'm going to put it out there and say, here's what I can actually do for you. Because again, every seller, this is what I'm going to help you sell your house to net more money with fewer hassles in the shortest amount of time possible. Isn't that what you want? To net more money, less hassle, shortest time possible. When's a good time for me to come out? Yeah.
Why wouldn't they work with you when they can make more working with you than not working with you, right? I love that. Leading with it as well, I think, is just really genius. So then on the FSBO,
go back.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, to go back to your no, go ahead. We can role play that.
Yeah, wanted to go to that. So they tell you no. What I heard in that conversation that you just shared, you simply don't get defensive. You just say, okay, right? Like, is that kind of what you lead with when you get told no? Okay, Like you start there.
Yeah, because again, you use the word rejection. No is not rejection.
Right.
Gary Keller said that the only people who can reject you are the people you'd want around you on your deathbed. So no is not rejection. And we used to have a sign in our offices that says, "It's not about you. How could it be?" So,
Mm.
the reality is it's your ego that gets in the way. And so I come from curiosity because once you tell me no, I know that it's, no is never, it's a decision continuum. No is just not right now. Okay. So tell me more, so it comes down to if you said no, when I said, when would be a good time for us to meet? No, give me whatever no you're going to come up with.
Yeah, I'm just really busy this week. I don't think I could meet with you.
Okay, great. What time next week? If you get if it
Right.
became about time, you gave me a week, so it's like, okay, if it's not this week, then what time next week? Again, I'm going to
I
address
love it.
whatever you say, and
Yeah.
so I'm not thinking about what do I have to say or anything like that. I'm going to listen to you, and then I say, okay, what time next week? And your answer would be,
Yeah, next week, probably Monday or Tuesday.
so tell me no again. Again, tell me no again because you just gave me
Oh
the
man,
appointment.
next week, my kid's in the hospital, right? Like I can't do it next week either. I'm traveling a little bit.
Oh wow! So it sounds like you've got a lot going on. I'm sorry about your kid. Are they okay?
Oh yeah, they just quick football accident. They should be fine.
Mm. So I imagine how many calls you getting on the for sale by owner right now on
Oh
your house.
man, the phone's been off the hook this week. Probably 20 or 30 easily.
I'm sure that's super stressful with everything going on in your life. How about this? What if I can come by and I'll only take 20 minutes of your time and we can talk about how I can take some of that stress off your plate, actually help you net more, and talk about what a good plan for you to get that home sold, have more time with your family, and not worry about it on your vacation and when you're traveling. When's a good time? Can I stop by today at 2?
Jeez, man, you really hit on a pain point. I am busy. I don't know if I even have enough time to try and sell this thing. There's too many calls going on right now.
Yeah. Why don't you let me take care of that? We can make sure that we get it sold for you and take that stress off you.
I love it. Eddie, I love it. And I've heard hundreds, if not thousands, of real estate agents and what they say in a FSBO, but you leading with just the simplest word, which is okay, right? Like everything's okay, right? You're on the
Yeah.
same side of the fence. You're in rapport with them, is what we talk a lot about. I think it's one of the simplest, best, and most basic ways to respond to a no, which is okay. Hey, I'm friendly over here, right? I'm with you. And so I love that. I think that's phenomenal. Um, really good, really, really good in the opening, in the way that we just kind of again get within rapport. Talk to me about the follow up. I think the money's in the follow up. The money's in the script and
Hmm.
saying the right words and getting past the third and fourth and fifth. No, there's a lot of money there, but I think there's a lot of money in the follow up because that first call isn't always going to be enough, right? So, talk. What is the regimented Eddie look like as far as following up with these FSBOs or these expireds?
It's just checking in. Hey, we're one weekend. I saw that the house is still for sale. You got any offers on it yet? Okay, great. And I start just asking questions and saying, now let me ask you this: what happens if the home doesn't sell in the next 3, 4 weeks? What are you going to do?
Man, I'm in a
And
world of hurt, right? Like I have to have it sold before then.
oh no, you have to have it. So tell me more about that. What makes you have to have it sold?
Yeah, we're relocating. We need to make this other offer on the other house. That's got to go through. Obviously, this home's got to get sold before then. So timing's just getting tight on me.
Oh well, yeah, you're telling me because even after you get it under contract, you still got another 30 to 45 days. So we are in a really tight timeline. So let's do this. Let's meet today and put a plan together to make sure that you hit your timeline because the worst thing that can happen is that you get to the end and you don't have it sold. And if it doesn't sell and you have to move, right? Do you lose the job, or what happens if you don't sell it?
I'm just sitting on it, right? Like, and I'm not able to get into my home, my next home.
Well, let's make sure that can happen for you. I have some time today. Actually, I'll be in your area around 3. Does that work for you?
Um, yeah, I can make 3 work.
Awesome.
A whole
And
bunch of
again, you can
things.
tell me no.
Yeah, yeah. No, I want people though to hear what you're saying and what you're doing, right? I'm going to be in your area this afternoon. Helps them understand the person that's the FSBO. Oh, I'm not going to inconvenience them if they do stop by, right? Like there's little genius pieces here that I hope everybody's picking up of what you're saying. It's really cool. The other thing about follow up, though, I'm just curious. Do you follow up once? Do you follow up 2, 3, 8, 10 times? Like, what's your method there?
You're going to laugh at this. My method is I'm going to keep calling you until you tell me that you're going to list with me or leave me alone.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's essentially it.
As long as the FSBO is still listed in FSBO, you're going to call and follow up with them
Yeah,
once a
yeah,
week. Is that kind of
yeah,
the ritual for
yeah.
it?
Well, it depends. It depends on the information they give me. If I sense urgency in them, then I'm going to call them a little bit more, because the worst thing that can happen, and a lot of mistakes that agents make, is they say, as the FSBO says, give me a call back in a month. And then they do the FSBO for, 2, 3 weeks, and then they hate the process and they
Yeah,
go with the agent that called them in 2 to 3 weeks.
right.
And you call them back in a month and they're like, oh, I'm already listed, or I'm already listing with someone else. I signed with someone else. Because, if whatever they tell you the follow up plan is, if they say a month, I call them back in 2 weeks. I cut it in half,
Yeah,
and so, if they tell me to call them back in a month, and always come from value.
yeah,
So when I call them back with info. I call them back with something where I say, hey, I actually saw some properties that sold nearby. And I was just curious if you had seen those properties as well and what you think about those as far as price. And, I do have some, I know that they got multiple offers on theirs and they're under contract, and they were only up for a few days and you've been up for a few weeks, or 2 weeks, or whatever it is.
yeah.
So let's talk about your strategy and let me see if I can help you.
Love it. Eddie, the time's gone way too fast. This, I hope, has been incredibly valuable for everyone listening. That just phenomenal information. You've not only done it once, you've done it 2 or 3 times in your business. You relocated to different cities. You've
Mm-hmm.
proven FSBOs and expireds work in different cities and different states. It's the fastest source business opportunities, what we call a FSBO. The expireds are monumental as well. There's huge opportunity. Those are really big this time of year, by the way, for people that are hearing this in November, December, January, February. Huge, massive expired months. We hope that you'll look at that as well. Any final thoughts for the group before we end today?
You mentioned I've done it a few times. I'm actually about to do it again right now. I'm embarking on a campaign starting next week, and I'll be documenting it. So it's Marigold, KW, in South Carolina here in the Charlotte area. And I'm going to be documenting how I do. So I'm starting from zero again. I just got my South Carolina license, and I'm going to hit the phones, and I've got Landvoice to support me, and I get my emails every morning, and I'm going after it.
Eddie, I love it. Can everybody follow you on social media? Are you on Instagram or Facebook? Someone
We're
can follow
we're
that journey.
building the social we're building the social media right now, and it's Marigold. So the Marigold team, Marigold, and so we're out of the Fort Mill office here in Keller Williams Connected, and yeah, so we'll be building that out and putting that out there in the next few weeks. You'll start seeing more from me.
Eddie, we'll check that out soon. Really appreciate all the feedback and value that you give to all of the real estate agents out there. Appreciate your time today, and look forward to hearing from you more. And maybe we'll even connect it through that journey and just see how things are going in a new
I
city.
love that.
So that's pretty fun. You're in Charlotte, North Carolina now, is that right?
Yep, the Charlotte area. So if you got referrals.
Absolutely. Send them Eddie's way. Eddie, great.
Yes.
Thanks again for all of your time, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Shaun. Have a great day.